Hey guys, so the topic of inspired action and action in general when it comes to manifesting things is one of the things I see discussed a lot, and common sense is just not present in a lot of these discussions, it seems. And so in yet another attempt to bring this whole manifestation thing down to earth where you can actually use it instead of thinking it's so different from what you've already been doing, or it's this big magic act that, you know, you have to do, you have to like chant the mantra exactly right, the exact right number of times in order to get the thing to happen. And if you screw it up, you know, it's not like that. This is just, people have been doing this shit for thousands of years, literally, knowingly or unknowingly. This is how things get done. And so if you just look back at your own life, you'll be able to see how certain actions that you took led to the eventual outcome for something that you wanted to have happen, and how you couldn't have possibly known the thing that you were doing was the thing that was going to bring that thing about. And that's inspired action, and that's all it is. And really, it's not something that a lot of these things are just kind of like irrelevant to even talk about, because when you're taking inspired action, you don't know that you're doing it. You don't know what it meant until later. A lot of people seem to think that inspired action is just like you're overcome by this overwhelming compulsion to like call somebody or do something, you know. For people in the SP area, I think a lot of the times they are confusing an overwhelming urge to just continue to obsess and call somebody, or, you know, or do something that they really probably shouldn't do, with inspired action just because they like really want to do it. Inspired action is just, you know, you live most of your day on autopilot every day, and inspired action is just the actions that you take that spring naturally from a mental state that you're in. And, you know, think of all the things that you do every day that you don't really know why you do it. Like, I'm not really sure a lot of the time, why did I go left at this stoplight instead of just continuing to the next one? You know, I've got 4 different routes that I take home. One is the one I usually take. How come sometimes I just blow past the place where I normally turn and, you know, end up somewhere else? Like, it's, who knows? That's the thing. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why you make that choice, but you don't know what it is. And that is just a quintessential example of inspired action. When the divine is helping you to do something, that is how it happens. That's one of the ways it happens. You just end up in a place where you're in the right place at the right time for something to occur that needed to happen to move you to the thing that you're trying to get, or whatever events need to happen to turn you into the person that you're trying to become. You know, other ways that these things happen is, you know, you'll just know suddenly the solution to a problem that's been bothering you, or suddenly it'll be shown, you'll just see it, like you'll run across it. Whether or not this is just tuning your perception to see something that was already there, or if it's actually the hand of God, you know, doing something, I don't know. But, you know, these are how things come about. It doesn't require a great deal of effort on your part to figure it out. So here's an example of what I would consider to be inspired action that, you know, this is one of those things where who could have known what this would have meant until much, much later. When my fiance, before we met, when he was still like, we knew of each other, but we weren't together, for like about 5 months, we were kind of interacting on and off. I had no idea that he thought anything was going to happen between us. He maintains to this day that basically from the second he saw me, he knew we were going to be together. Like, if we ever met, if we ever like got a chance to know each other, that we would end up together. That's what he told me. And so, you know, he said that wasn't based on anything. It wasn't like, oh, I just like was super attracted. He just like, I just felt like we would end up together. And so, you know, of course, being a sane individual, he was just like, well, where's that coming from? he didn't, you know, try to like immediately, you know, he didn't immediately go, oh my God, I need to contact her and tell her this, because that would have seemed insane. And I would have been like, that's really weird. Stop talking to me, probably. So he just kind of was like talking to me here and there. He would watch videos on this channel. If I posted about him on Reddit and I said something and he had something to offer, he would. And then starting at about the time COVID lockdown happened, he got a little more bold and he sent me a message and just said, hey, you know, I'm not trying to be creepy here. I'm just wondering how you're doing with the whole lockdown thing, which I thought was really sweet. And we kind of talked back and forth a little bit, but I was involved with another person at that point, which he knew because I was talking about it on this channel. And so we just like had these minor interactions for like 3 months. And then finally, after this had been going on for months, sort of like these little conversations here and there, I remember the last couple conversations that we had because I was like wanting to engage with him, but I was just like too overwhelmed with too much shit going on in my life at that time. He had sent me some messages that, you know, I found interesting. I wanted to talk to him, but just kind of blew it off. I didn't even mean to. I remember like thinking, shit, I never replied to that message. Like we were talking and I kind of like disappeared and never replied to that message, and like feeling bad about it and stuff. And he tells me now that, sorry, I'm not holding my phone still. He tells me now that at one point he just said, you know what, whatever this was I thought about this, it's just, it must be just crazy because nothing's gonna happen here. I've tried to talk to her a whole bunch of times and it just kind of like never really goes anywhere. So I'm gonna just stop. I'm just gonna leave this alone and just let go of whatever it was I thought about this. And literally the next day, that morning, the next day, I was thinking about, you know, I like to try to give stuff to people. I try, you know, because I have so much and my income keeps growing and I'm in this cycle of just like wealth growing and growing. I don't want to just hoard it all. I try to like give a lot of it to people. I try to give a lot in general so that I can kind of feel like I'm doing the right thing with everything and keep the currency flowing and, you know, try to make the fucking world a better place, whatever, you know, all the urges that you have for that kind of thing. And so I was just like, well, what could I do? You know, I had just been reading Reality Transurfing, thought it was a really great book. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to buy like, I'm just going to start contacting everybody that I've been talking to lately and see if they want a copy of Reality Transurfing. It's like $35 book. And I just think it's just great. It's like Neville for the modern day with some other stuff added in. And so the first person I thought, I was like, oh, I'm going to contact, well, I didn't know his name then, but I was like, I'm going to contact this dude from Reddit and just say, hey, you know, would you be interested in a copy of this book? I want to give a bunch of them away. Do you want one? I'll send it to you. Just give me your address. I'll have it shipped to you from Amazon. And so little did I know that the day before he was just like, I'm not reaching out to her again. You know, I've tried, I'm like trying to establish, I'm trying to figure out what this thing is where I think we're going to be together, but I just, you know what, I can't try anymore, whatever. This is just getting old, and dropped it. Literally the night before. And then I just had this urge to do this thing that seems very natural for me to do because it's the kind of thing I do. And the first person I think of is this guy who was just like trying to talk to me. I figured, you know, I'll reach out to him. So who knows what that was? That's inspired action. That's it in a nutshell. It's just feeling compelled to do something, not necessarily overwhelmingly or like, you know, you feel like you're having a premonition and you have to, you know, you just feel like I'm going to do this thing and you do it. And then it has an outcome. And later on you can go, wow, well, that little thing right there, if that hadn't happened, the course of my life might have been very different. I might not have ended up engaged to, you know, a person that I think is the right person for me, which was my intention. So that is my best example of inspired action, which, you know, I now know the significance of that one little inkling, and I'm really glad that I acted on it. It's no more, it's no less than that. As much as I know, you know, people like to get lost in the magical thinking of all of this stuff. You know, that's really all it is. It's just doing things throughout your day, not really knowing why. And if you stop and think about how often you're doing that, then you can understand why this inspired action comes through a state and creates your world. You don't really know what you're doing all the time. And so I think this is also why falling asleep in the feeling of feeling successful, which I've been doing now for a couple of weeks, and like it's had some pretty interesting outer effects. I think that's why that's important too, because when you're in a certain frame of mind, you just take different actions and move toward different outcomes without really knowing why you're doing it. That being said, the topic of action in this community drives me a little fucking crazy because, you know, this could just be my personal philosophy, although I have to be honest with you, I don't know many people that just sit around and just things are just happening all the time without them ever doing anything. But, you know, my personal philosophy is that God helps those who help themselves. And what that means is that if I want something or I'm trying to do something, I do all of the things that I can that I know will further that goal. Will, you know, everything that I can do, that I can think of, I'm willing to do it and I do it. And then if that's not enough, or if there's something that has to happen and I can't see how to get it, or I don't know what to do, that's when the divine intelligence comes in and takes care of it all. It takes away the element of having to know every little last detail about how you're going to do something or how you're going to get somewhere. But I feel this essential element of being at least willing to do stuff to get the things you want. Like, how bad do you really want something if you're not even willing to do what it would take to get it? I just think a lot of people are just fucking around. I really do. I mean, and no judgment, because you are more than entitled to do whatever you want. What really drives me crazy is when I see other people, I see them advising other people to do the same thing. Like, there are people that are like obviously willing to put in effort and be disciplined and do stuff to get what they want. And then other people are like, no, you're not supposed to do that. There was a post today where somebody was saying, you know, can I both visualize finishing the marathon and visualize the process of like training? Like, is that allowed? Is that bad? Will one cancel? You know, there's like this question about, you know, because everybody's like, don't mess with the middle. It's like, dude, sometimes the middle is fucking obvious. If you're going to run a race, you're going to have to train for the race. So, and all these people are like, no, you're not supposed to mess with the middle. You're not supposed, all you have to do is just envision the end, and then the middle will take, it's like, okay, the guy is talking about like the process of training for a marathon. Can I visualize myself like running to train? And the answer is obviously, Jesus Christ, yes. Like, this is not rocket science. And when there's something like that, you know, people are like, I want to be a dancer. Am I just supposed to lay here and imagine myself dancing? Then one day I'll get up and like, I'll just get discovered and I'll just magically be, it's like, dude, no. You want to be a dancer because you want to dance? You better start learning to dance. You better get up and start doing the stuff that dancers do, because that's what you're trying to do, is be a dancer. If you look at Neville Goddard's examples, I'm so tired of people using Neville Goddard as an excuse for this. If you look at the stories, the anecdotes and stuff that he has in his books, they are nearly universally made up of one of two things. Either people are manifesting things, actually it's the same thing. If people are manifesting things that already belong with who they are, you know, and then the second thing I was going to say is, or, you know, they're manifesting something they can't see a way to. It's usually both, actually. You know, he has a story of a couple who owns a piece of land, and on part of the land, they have an office building that they purchased. And then on this other part of the land, they want to have an apartment building. They want to build an apartment building, rent it out, you know, to make money. And they just can't see a way to do it. They don't have the money. And so, you know, they imagine together, they jointly imagine this building. They do all the stuff Neville says. You know, they walk around the building in their mind. They plan the whole thing out. with just utter faith that it's going to happen and they're not going to have to spend any money on it. And then, it comes about through a bridge of incidents, everything's taken care of, the building gets built. That's a scenario where they had no way to get the money. There was nothing that they could do. So of course turn it over to the divine intelligence. They just bought this piece of land and they're strapped and they don't have any way to get any more money, and the way is made for them to get money, and they didn't have to do much for it, other than be willing and open to sort of accept the things that were presented to them as they showed up. But how much of a stretch is it for people who already own a piece of land with a building on it, and they want, of course that makes sense that they just wanted it, but there was no way to get it. So the way was made. They didn't have to change into different people. They didn't, Neville Goddard's stories are never, this guy living in a refrigerator box on Lower Wacker Drive dreams of being the president, and one day he gets hit by a limo and then picked up, and then they start listening to his views on politics and they decide to nominate him for, it's just like, that's not what happens, in any of his stories. There's some common sense that I think Neville Goddard was expecting people to inject into this. He was lecturing to people in the 40s and 50s, and that was a different time than today. If he were lecturing today, I think you would see a little more clarification on some of this stuff, especially regarding taking action. I'm not sure how else you define God helps those who help themselves. So yeah, inspired action, one thing. It doesn't mean you're in the state and so then you force yourself to do a bunch of stuff. It doesn't mean that you feel overwhelmingly compelled to do something necessarily. It's just the action that you take that's inspired by your state, without even knowing what you're doing half the time. And when it comes to action, you do you. But my advice on the action thing would be that if you know what to do to get from point A to point B and you're struggling to do that, adopting the end state should remove much, if not all, of the resistance. It should remove the double-mindedness. My best example of this is with weight loss. People try to go on diets, they try to start exercise programs, and they're not in the frame of mind of the person who will succeed with that. They're thinking, how can I still behave like the fat person while, getting the results of a thin person in reality, when it doesn't work like that, at least not in this example. If what you want is to be able to stick to a better diet with less food, healthier food, and go to the gym and nail all of your goals physically, you're going to have to be in the frame of mind of the person that wants those things, not the person that wants to sit around and eat food. Ask me how I know. This has been a tough one for me to flip, and I've been on all sides of this one. So, I really know the difference between the one frame of mind that produces the one outer result and the other that is just like a completely different orientation towards all that stuff, where it's like you want to go to the gym. It's like I used to feel like, God, I just like gotta, if I miss a gym day, it sucks. Like, I want to go, and I don't want any of that garbage food. Gross. Like, get that away from me. It was a completely different mindset, and now I'm like somewhere in the middle where I'm just like, I don't really know what to do right now. But yeah, I mean, if you try to take action from the wrong state, if you try to take actions that your state would not normally take, you're going to find just resistance and struggle and ultimately failure. But, when you're in the frame of mind of the thing that you want to become, or the thing that you want to have happen, and there are obvious actions that you can take, don't take them at your own risk. That's where I've landed on this. I have no, the only time that I've gotten things without doing anything was when I legitimately did not know how to get it, or the only way that I could see to get it was a way I really did not want to take. So you have to take that into account. If you really don't want to do something, you know, and it seems to be the only way to the thing that you want, that's a good time to just say, this doesn't feel right to me. I'm not going to take this action. I trust divine intelligence to get me there some other way. That's the only exception that I can come up with to the take action as a general rule. So I hope that helps somebody. I look forward to the comments on this video. They're always fun whenever I say that I think you should do stuff. Have a great day.